Hey guys, Michael here. Hey, this is finally what we're gonna do here. We got on the three mindsets here, and I wanted to go over this because, I wanted to make sure I was a bit more clear with the three minds and what I was saying. Because uh, in the video, I felt like I wasn't explaining it quite well enough. But anyways, we're going to go over it a little bit more detail today and going over each of the three minds: the higher self, the conscious self, and the lower self. Now, some of you are very curious about the lower self and you haven't heard of that, and I'm going to put that at the end, so I'm going to have going over the most time with it because, a lot of people don't know what the lower self, the higher self's been talked to death, but the lower self is actually pretty important. So I'll get to that at the end, but first off, we're going to start off with the higher self. Now, the higher self, what that is basically, oh, two erasers. Okay, we've got the higher self here. Now the higher self, as many of you know, is a lot more wiser and in some ways smarter than we are. And the purpose here is we're going to be wanting to integrate that into ourselves, but we'll get to that later. And some aspects about the higher self you should know is it's very wise. It can hold vast amounts of information. You can actually store and access information in the higher self, like to where there's no separation between the two. Because, I know it's been said, like, there is no separation between the two, and a lot of people like say, well, why can't I access that? Well, I'll tell you why here in a second. Alright, so you can store things in there. Alright, and the next part is like, it gives you advice when you most need it. Can give you big flashes of insight. Alright, and that is just some of the things right there that it does overall. It does a lot more things, but I just wanted to draw some of the basic things the higher self did. Now, the higher self, I've heard it's been termed as the soul and also the spirit, but let me tell you guys, the soul and the soul is just a piece of the spirit. So it's like they're kind of one and the same, but kind of not. So keep that in mind. The higher self, in my mind, is the spirit. And, there's, like anything else, it's kind of like graduating kind of degrees of where that mindset is. And we're going to be incorporating all those in. But it's like that's going to take some time and it's going to be a process. Alright, so now I mentioned something here I was going to tell you guys on how to store information there. Like what I do is like I will have information, like it's a huge amount of information that I don't seem to like get it all at one time. Like I'll take what I'm seeing and what I'm learning in my mindset, I'll connect to the higher self and send that information up there. And what I'll do is I'll kind of let it sit there for a while. And as I'm studying, I'll be connecting to that towards bringing it back down into me where it's allowed to muddy over it, and it helps me understand the subject a lot better in the end. So you can actually store and get advice on subjects there. So, like, it can be rather amazing of the stuff you can do up there. Now, something to note is, like, there is a relationship between each of the three minds. The higher self, I would say, is more like, okay, let's put this in the terms of like let's say the conscious self is more like the captain of the ship, And the captain of the ship directs everything, says what goes on the ship, what doesn't, and makes sure everything's all good to go. But like anything else, like that ship also has to have a crew, galleys, cooks, engine room workers, and that's all the lower self's doing. And, you know, it powers the body, the physical emotions, and, you know, being rather frank here, for some of you, it's like, for the last time, like, you were really intimate with somebody, it's like, you know the feelings that can rise up from that whole occasion and how powerful those can be. So if you don't think that the lower self has power, you're dead wrong. It has a lot of power. So I see a lot of times in the spiritual communities, people are saying, rule out the emotions. What you're doing is actually, you're cutting off completely, like, a part of yourself, so it fractures. So what we're going to be doing here for this week is we are going to become consciously aware of the stuff that is flowing through us. So I'm going to take what we were doing last week a step further, and I'll be getting into that in a second. But now for the next part, the higher self is more like the bosses of the cruise liner that's sailing through, and it makes the ultimate set destinations, the decisions, and it's the one who rules. Now that you've gotten that little analogy in your head, all right, where are we going to go next? All right, now for what I was going to talk about next. All right, the next part deals with, like, being consciously aware of that soul self we were in this last week here. So what you're going to do is, like, this time, instead of just immersing yourself into it, I want you to pay very, very close attention to why you're in there. And what I want you to do, all right, let's say for, like, that technique I showed you in one of the core videos here that I put out just recently. All right, let's say here that you went on top of the mountain here, or you went in the cave and there's that light there. All right. Now, with that light there, let's say this is you, okay, or this one. This time when you jump in, or when you rise up into it, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go in there, and you'll be in kind of this, for how I experience is this golden light bubble. And for this, like, I went through, like, last time, the stages of where you really want to go into yourself, and you really want to calm your breathing, you want to hear your heartbeat, and you'll feel yourself go inwards more and more until you're all the way there. And I'll link that video actually right now, and you can go watch that. And, you know, if you want to review on that, you can review on that skill. But for this, now that you are up here, you're going to be doing a little meditation here. Now, this meditation involves, okay, let's say this is your body here. You're going to be using your body awareness, and you're going to use that awareness to go up to your crown, right up here. And I want you to kind of use that connection while you're in this ball. You want to feel that energy out as you're traveling up to your crown. And you'll find that little trail that leads directly to the spirit, that higher self of yours. And you're going to channel it down into here. And you're going to want to observe very carefully. And I want this to be very carefully done, and observing it. You don't have to say anything or do anything specifically. I just want you to observe. And this is a very conscious observing. Oftentimes, a lot of meditations will be rather mindless. You'll be just listening to a sound. And while that's good and all, that higher energy where you're not consciously observing that could be any sort of energy or entity or anything where you don't exactly know. And that's where the conscious self comes into play. That conscious self, like the captain of any ship, is going to make sure it keeps its sovereignty. And the reason why you want that sovereignty, because you are here for what you need to do. You are not supposed to be doing the work of other beings and other mindsets. Like, you are here for you. That's the reason you're here. And this is your journey. Okay? So that's the reason we're doing this. We're going to be watching this. And the reason for this is, like, if you get into channeling or, you're getting information, you really want to have that go through you and see where it's coming from. Is it coming from your higher self? Is it coming from an external guru? Or, another being, or some information out there? And while all of those can be good, you really want to make sure that goes through your heart and you say, hey, is this good? Or is this not? Like anything else, like, things don't change much out there when you get to the higher realms. There may be more information, but not all of it is always good. It's like the internet, it's like some really good information is out there, but it's like Wikipedia. Someone could be typing anything and sending you anything. So, and this isn't to promote, what's the word? Conspiracies, in a way, and pointing people, oh, they're channeling something evil. And while that may be the case for some people, usually channeling is pretty harmless unless it becomes harmful to other people. So, and some people are hurt by, their own inward stuff, and sometimes the things that a channeler says can be very hurtful to some people. But there is a difference. There's an obvious difference, and you can be the judge for that. Like, I'll give you guys a little story, and I'm not going to name any names, of course. There was, a while back, somebody I knew that, they channeled a lot, and what would happen is they would go completely out of themselves. They would let this other being completely take over them. And while that's good, you need to make sure there is a filter in place, and you're not just letting it just go through you. That's why we're having an observation here. You're observing what's going through. And, for some, that may be a little hard, like not interrupting the flow, but, it takes practice. And this is for your own safety. So what would happen is, like, she would constantly do this, and what would begin to happen would be, like, she slowly started to change, and it just became something that wasn't, I would like to say, not really her in the end. And it can change a lot of people. I've seen spiritual people that, they used to be very kind, but then they became very cold because it kind of cut out the emotional part of being human. And while some of us are starseeds and other beings that are here, and we may feel different, there's still this human body, and these emotions are important. And even as starseeds, we still have those other feelings within us. So it's very important to keep who we are and that sovereignty that we have. So keep that in mind. This is the reason why we're doing this first, and not just going straight to the meat of things. So, back to what I was saying here. We're going to be channeling this from the crown, and it's going to be going down into the heart center, and you're going to observe it, and you're going to just you want to keep that frequency, and that it'll be kind of like a little connection cord, and you really want to feel this out. It'll be kind of like a little cord of light that's streaming along, and it goes right up through here, going up, and it will reach all the way to the crown and go beyond. And you'll follow that, and you'll feel something beyond right there, and it'll feel enormous, and it will feel very familiar to you. Like, it will feel like coming home. Like, it will feel very, very calming, very loving. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to pull that down, as I said earlier, and just channel it right into here. Now, let's see, make sure I didn't miss anything from my notes here. All right. So, the key is for this week, we are being very consciously aware for this week. Not only what's going on in ourselves, but also what's going on around us. Don't just take things for face value. Look a little deeper. Like, when things come up, like, look a little deeper into it. Like, within yourself, or when, like, things around you, with people even. And just be aware. Like, there are graduating degrees of awareness. Some people are in their body and their mind is awake. That's lucid dreaming, or in some cases astral projection. Or for some people, it's like their mind's asleep, but their body's awake. And that's a lot of people in the world where they're just living their lives day in, day out, and they just don't know why they're doing the things they're doing, and they can be quite miserable, and they just don't know where they're going, and that's kind of sad. So this is why we're doing conscious awareness of ourselves, and it often does a lot of reflecting of ourselves. Now, for this last bit, I also, for any of you that are very familiar with shadow work, I would highly recommend you go and do so. And I'll also leave a link in the link below of an interview I did with Contessa Miller, for any of you guys that know her. And we go over like very much of what that conscious like awareness of that shadow work, of even light work, where it's like you're delving more into like the past. And something to keep in mind here, when you're doing this technique, like you may have some memories come through, and like I've had times when there's little bits of light shine on that shadowy edge of the consciousness where memories are revealed. So you may have some of those, just as a bit of a disclaimer. Anyways, guys, if you have any questions, let me know. Put them in the comments below, and like, subscribe. Have a good week.